So the next childhood memories I have uh, begin when we moved out to Chambly, actually Carignan, but I think it's about 18 miles off the south shore of Montreal. Montreal's an island city, cement jungle. Now we're out in the country, and where we live, this is a street called Bachand. It basically was one street that bisected what were farm fields on either side. So across the road, there's a row of houses, and probably 2 or 3 miles behind there was all farm field. And then on our side of the street, oh gosh, behind there, probably 6 or 7 miles, the fields just seemed to stretch on endlessly. And behind that, you had the mountain, Mount Saint Hilaire back there. So pretty picturesque, but definite rural feeling to it. Just one street in the middle of this farm country. And some of the earliest memories there, I can remember. This would have been when I was 6, so 1963. I can remember. I have a picture in my mind of a dad sitting on the front step. We had it was a cement. I think it was 2 steps to get up onto the entryway into the house. He was sitting there, had a beer in his hand. I can picture an empty beer bottle beside him, and we were all on the front lawn. I say we all, that's all my brothers and sisters. So I was 6 at the time. So John would have been just approaching his 13th birthday. This was in the summertime, so he was still 12, maybe 2 or 3 months shy of his 13th birthday. And then Janet, my older sister, was 7. Jeff would have been 4. And then, let's see, Jerry would have been, Jason would have been 1 or 2. Let's see. Yeah, he would have been, he's born in 62. So yeah, he would have been only a year old. And Jerry, of course, not even born yet. So anyway, the vision that I have, and we had this driveway, was not paved, just stones on it. It had a fairly deep ditch on either side of the driveway, and a front lawn that was maybe, gosh, I don't know, 40 feet wide, something like that. And our house was on 1/3 of an acre of property, so the vast majority of the property was behind the house. But anyway, these memories were of our whole family just being on the front lawn, and John throwing a baseball, sometimes a football, playing catch with me. And the thing that stands out in my mind, on either side of our property were properties and homes that were owned by French people. To one side was Odette. It was never an issue with them because where their house was situated was on the other side of the property. So if the ball went into their yard, no big deal, just run over there. It's nowhere near the house. They're not even seeing that. But on the other side, the Vendettes, their house was like right up against the property line, or close to it, as you're going to get, maybe I don't know, 10 feet, something like that. And what kept on happening, John would throw the ball, and even then, right from the beginning, he would throw that thing at me pretty hard. He wasn't allowing for the fact that I was 7 years younger. I had to learn how to catch in a hurry. And sometimes he would make a bad throw, or sometimes I would just flat out miss it. And so the ball would go off of our property onto the front yard of the Vendettes. And this happened a number of times. And I remember they were sitting out on their front stoop, and they were kind of looking and talking in French. Of course, I didn't understand any French, but they weren't too happy about it. And subsequently, in the coming months, what ended up happening, they planted a whole row of trees, kind of like fir trees, I don't know the exact type, but they jammed them in there so tight. It was like an impenetrable wall. So any ball or anything of any kind would get stomped by this wall of trees. And also they were blocked from view, or probably more appropriately, we were blocked from their view. So they pretty early on put up this barrier between our two properties. And so that's some of the first memories. I can remember playing in the backyard, where it seemed like, like the size of a football field. Of course, when you're young, things seem a lot bigger than they are. It's always interesting to go back as an adult and realize how relatively small. It's still a good sized property, 1/3 of an acre, but compared to when you're at that age, it seemed so huge. Like if you had to run all the way back to the ditch at the back of the property, that was a long run. Um, then moving along, I have the memory of that same year, that first year, I got my first bicycle, this little red bike, and there was a family down the street about maybe a third of a mile, the Drummonds. They had a young boy who was, I think he's 1 year older than I was. Yeah, he was in Janet's grade, and he had gotten a new bike, and so my parents had arranged to buy this secondhand bike from him, and it was perfect, nice size for me. And I remember John teaching me how to ride a bike initially, holding the bike steady while I got up there, and then a couple times I just sort of fell off into the grass on the side of the road there, between the road and the ditch. And then finally he kind of got me going, and I was wobbly, but so excited, that excitement of first getting control of the bike. And he's telling me to stay on the side of the road, and so I'm going along and gaining confidence as I go. And at first he was running behind me, but then I was going fast enough, and I guess he got a little tired, so he stopped running. But anyway, so I'm pedaling along, and I go from that feeling of elation of, yes, I'm doing it, to the realization that, oh, wait a minute, how do I stop this thing, and how do I dismount it, because my legs are so short. I mean, the bike was small enough for me to pedal, but this was going to be a crash landing no matter what. And so I'm pedaling along, and I'm trying to slow down, I'm trying to figure out what to do, and then but I'm going further and further, and finally I just realized I'm just going to have to fall over and take the pain of a fall, because if I go too far in another less than a half a mile, I'm going to be at the end of the road and going straight across, and then there's a big embankment, and then down to the river. So clearly I'm not going to let that happen. Even at age 6, I'm have enough of wits about me that I'm not going to get anywhere near the river. So sure enough, I just finally slowed down to almost a complete stop. I can remember even now that feeling of, oh God, here goes, and then just falling over sideways, and the bike landing on my legs, and it landing in the rocks and the little shrubs and grass on the side. Yeah, that hurt, but I survived it and just picked up the bike. And then the other thing was, of course, I didn't know how to get on the bike, so I couldn't stop the bike. I couldn't start on my own. John had balanced it and got me going, and so I had to walk the bike all the way home from there. But pretty good memory, first time riding a bike.